Another episode of our little seminars, our little meetings about Spring Valley Bank and Spring Valley Bank real estate partners. We appreciate you coming. In the past few weeks, we've talked about the application process. We've talked about flips. We've talked about investment property buy and hold situations. Today, we're going to get into construction loans, because one of the things that we get asked, a common question is, do you do construction loans, new construction? And the answer is yes, Spring Valley Bank certainly does. Whether it's a new construction of a personal residence, a home, or whether it's a commercial type property, Spring Valley Bank will do both. One of the key things to know that people aren't typically aware of, there is a 25% down payment required. However, the common thing that happens is that when someone comes here, they typically own the land already. If you own the land free and clear, that may offset the down payment required. Part of it, or maybe all of it, just depends on the value of the property before you get started. So that's a real important thing to know. Typically, the bank does not finance raw land. I say typically because I'm not going to say absolutely not, but typically when the client comes, they're going to own the property. And by the way, excuse me for not introducing Beshka, not introducing ourselves. My name is Remo Loreto.
Beshka, Fairbanks Hunt.
Beshka is here on a daily basis. If you have any questions at all, whether it's with regards to new construction or a flip or a buy and hold, you can call in anytime and talk to Beshka. She'll be happy to speak with you, as I would be as well. But Beshka's here every day. I am not in the office every day. But nevertheless, let's continue talking about them. I'm going to refer to my notes because this is important. I don't want to miss anything here. I want you to be fully informed. Spring Valley Bank's construction loans, these are 12-month interest-only loans. They're not convertible. So you would need to, and Spring Valley Bank can help you transition into a Freddie Mac loan, refinance into a Freddie Mac loan, but you would need to have arrangements for refinancing after construction is completed. These loans typically have, obviously as a construction loan, there's going to be draws. The bank does require the use of an affidavit service. An affidavit service, you can use an affidavit service of your choice. There's a couple of common ones here in town, but that affidavit service is going to be responsible for verifying that all the contractors have been paid and all the material has been paid for prior to a draw being released to you. Just like I've said in the previous episodes, whether it's the buy and hold or a flip, it's our objective when you request a draw to get there the same day, if at all possible, the next day at worst. So there's no delay in getting you your draws. Let's see. Yeah, as I said, it could be residential or commercial. Some of the things that you're going to need, the application process is essentially the same. Regular, normal application form, credit check authorization, 2 years worth of tax returns, 2 months worth of bank statements. Often the builder, the person that's going for this loan, is a self-employed person. And in those cases, we need a personal financial statement. So the application process is essentially the same. Some of the differences are that when you submit your application for a construction loan, we're also going to be looking for building plans. And that's going to include a comprehensive list of the materials that's going to be used, architectural renderings of the drawings of the property, so that way the bank can really get make an evaluation on the nature of the property, what you plan on building, where you plan on building, the type of material. The bank is also going to want to know who the builders are going to be. Are you going to actually be the builder yourself? Typically, that's not the case. But if you are going to be using a builder, the bank is going to want a resume of that builder. They're going to want to know a little bit about their background, what they've built, how much experience they have. If you're going to do it, it's going to be the same thing. if this is going to be your first build, the bank is going to look at this, scrutinize it a little bit closer. Are you going to do most of the work, or are you going to act as the GC? If you're going to act as a GC and you're going to sub out various other aspects of the work, the bank is going to want to know who those vendors are and what their experience is, whether it's your electrical contractor, the roofing contractor, who's going to pour the foundation, those kinds of things. They're going to want to see this in the form of a budget, and it's going to need to be in writing. They're going to also want a detailed list of any items that you've already paid for, what those items were and what they were used for, how they were used. If there's any construction that's been done already, and that is not common, that can become problematic. If you have started construction and paid for certain things prior to coming to the bank, that it does happen where someone will have got into the construction and realize that they're going to need additional funding, and they'll come to the bank. Not only this bank, but the other lenders as well. It's not an unusual problem that when work has been begun and the builder, then the borrower, asks the bank to step in and help fund the remaining parts of the project. Some of the problems that arise is with the nature of the vendors. It's the same thing that I referred to before. Have all the vendors been paid? What's been done up front? How much is left to be done? How much money is it going to take to complete the project? Are there any liens already on the property? Those kinds of things. So it's best to start the project with your lender from the beginning, as opposed to going to the lender, but it can be done, and this bank will be as helpful as possible in those situations if you find yourself in that kind of a situation. Other things that are going to be required, obviously proof of ownership of the lot, that's going to be required, and a copy of the plat survey of the land. So those are the kinds of things that we're going to need. Beshka, do you have anything to add so far?
No, actually, you just covered the plat survey. I was thinking along those lines, so you covered it.
So, it's not as complicated as it may sound. It's actually a relatively smooth process. We'll be here to help you. At this point, this would be a great point for questions, because the construction process it's not like the flips or the buy and holds. There's a lot more questions with the flips and the buy and holds. So if anyone has questions, Rachel Ann, has anyone sent anything in at this point?
Yes, Jerry from Fairfield again was asking, could you please review the documents needed to apply for the construction loan? I guess he's wanting us to review those again.
Okay. Thanks, Jerry. I appreciate your question and the fact that you've looked in. Beshka, do you want to go over those documents?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So we essentially would need a final copy of the building plans, the budget in writing that shows how each category will be paid, a detailed listing of any items that were prepaid and how those items were used, contract detailing all of the construction to be done, signed by the builder and yourself. That includes the builder's name, address, and contact information, a copy of the plat survey, and proof of ownership of the lot if you own the land already. There's one other thing I thought of too. If it is a pre-sale, like if you are a builder and the property has been pre-sold, we would also need information on the a pre-approval from the actual person that's buying the property. So that's just something to add.
So, thank you, Beshka. That was great. And let me add, and this is slightly different, just to make sure that your question is fully answered. If you were also asking, or your question was more pointed to the application side of this thing,
Gotcha.
we're going to need typical application. All lenders use the same application, so it's a Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae generic application. We'll need that. We're going to need the most recent 2 years of federal tax returns, federal only. We don't need state, local, or anything like that. But we're going to need some type of documentation of income documentation. If you're a self-employed person, a personal financial statement is what's going to be required. That can be in any form. There is not a specific form that we need that. We will need 2 months worth of bank statements, both personal and your business, if you're doing this through your business. We would need the statement page of any asset accounts you have, stock, bonds, so forth, the most recent statement page. Those are the main things that you're going to need to submit along with your initial application. I hope that answers it, Jerry. Rachel Ann, has anyone else asked any questions?
Let's see. We have Edith over towards Harrison, I believe. She wanted to know what you feel are the biggest challenges with residential construction today.
Beshka, you want to try?
Let's see. Well, they're also very different from project to project. Now, I wouldn't say that's difficult, but it kind of complicates things. It's not a cut and dry, one size fits all type of a process. I mean, basically, they have to be taken into account. Each plot of land is different. Each, dream home is different. Each vision is completely different. So I wouldn't say that that's a problem, but I would say that it can cause things to be a little bit more problematic or detailed, or just it's very, very, very different from case to case. So that's the only thing that comes to mind in that regard for me.
What I would say, thanks, that was very good, very informative. But what I myself would say, some of the problems are certainly finding a lot. Now, you may have a lot that you've inherited, or you may already have a lot that you've been sitting on for years that you've been planning to build your ideal dream home on. That's fine. But if you have made the decision as an aspiring new construction, new homeowner, you want to build your dream home, and now the search begins for a lot, that's one of the problems. Are you going to build in a subdivision? Are you going to buy land and build? What is the requirements, size requirements if you're going to build in a community, HOA if you're going to build in some type of a community? Those are some things. Other things are, although the cost of lumber is coming back down to earth, you have the cost of building is formidable. So that's another thing to take into consideration. You need to have very, very solid plans, architectural plans, which, by the way, are not inexpensive. It's an investment that you're going to make. And so that's another thing that you need to be prepared for. You may go through the whole process with an architect and design and redesign and change and ultimately not end up building. But let's say you get through that part of the process and now you need to find the actual vendors who are going to do the building. Yeah. So with as busy as the construction world is right now, finding those vendors could be a challenge. I would certainly recommend, if there are not people that you know personally, that you actually go out and take a look, find out jobs that they've actually done and go out and take a look. And I know that might sound a little bit like you're pushing the envelope and, yeah, I'd like to go see work that you've done, but they'll understand. It really matters. The worst thing that could happen is that you agree with you've had to take on a vendor that you had and it's not been referred to you, that you don't know, have no experience with, and that's the one that can actually meet your timing and date, and you've not seen the quality of their work, but you've hired them. And once the construction begins, you see the quality of their work and you wish you wouldn't have hired them. So those are some of the issues that you should plan for and be ready for.
I do have one other. I was thinking recently there was a situation where someone happened to have a piece of land And, it's the market's been crazy and people are, trying to come up with better and more creative ways to kind of do what they need to do in the market as it stands. So the land too, it must be, make sure you count the cost as far as the land is concerned. If it takes a lot to grade it, if it's hilly and it may end up being more, more of a job than you want it to be to get it to where it needs to be before you can build your dream home on it. So it's a good thing to kind of count the cost and make sure that, that the land is going to be a good place to build your dream home. So just thought of that.
That's a great point because it brings up another. The cost of the permits is typically not something that's included in the construction costs. Those are typically things that you're going to pay for prior to construction and leading up to that. So just be aware of that. That's one thing that may not be covered. And I'm not saying that there may not be an opportunity of an exception depending on what the nature of the permit is and what you may need. But typically those kinds of things are things that you're going to need to be prepared for yourself. Another thing that struck me going back to the vendors, because vendors are a very big part of this. The people who are actually going to do the work, let's be honest, the quality of the work depends on their skill and their ability and their experience. But another requirement is going to be that you can prove that we're going to need copies of their workman's comp licenses and insurance and all of those kinds of things to prove that if there is any mishap on the job, the bank and you yourself won't be held liable. There is insurance to protect all of you from that. So I hope that helps a little bit too.
Mm-hmm.
Rachel Ann, anyone else?
Yes, actually. Mike, also from Harrison, says that he has a plot of land. What are the first steps he needs to go through in order to start a new construction residential? He puts residential in parentheses.
Okay, Mike, thanks for your question. Another one from Harrison. That's good. There's a lot of activity going on out there. So if you're kind of the person that we referred to earlier, someone that has a plot of land and has had it for some time and finally made a decision that you're going to move forward and build or at least explore that opportunity, one of the first things that you are going to want to do, depending on where this property is located, if it's already in an existing community, you need to find out what the bylaws of that community are with regards to limitations on size, how small, how big, those kinds of things. Outbuildings, what the limitations are with regards to outbuildings. So if this is going to be something that you're going to build on a piece of land that sits all by itself, then actual building plans, getting with an architect, a designer to determine what you want your project to look like. Is there going to be a basement, a full basement? The terrain, as Beshka said, the terrain is going to be a big part of this. How much excavation is going to be required? So you need to begin exploring those kinds of things before you even come to the bank. Because if you came to the bank and Mike and said that, I want to do a building project, the first question is going to be, what are you going to build? And your answer may be, I haven't decided yet. I just want to know if I can get secure financing. Well, the bank doesn't know yet what they're going to be financing. They don't know the nature of the project, how big, how much money is involved, who's going to be doing the building, all those kinds of things. So if you've not done any of those preliminary things in terms of the design of the home, size, and things like that, I think your first steps are going to be to do that. After you get past that and you have a bit of a feel for what you are going to build, if you get the lumber package, the electric costs, and all those kinds of things, that's when you can begin to approach a lender to see if you're going to be able to get this thing financed. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate the question.
Okay, next we have a question from Fred out in Oxford. He's asking for information regarding land development.
Thanks, Fred. Thanks for the question coming from Oxford. It's a long distance, so I appreciate the question. Land development, as I referred to earlier, this bank does not do a lot, and I am very careful with saying none, but we do not do a lot of land development lending. Again, not to say that we wouldn't, but my recommendation to you is if you would like to explore it further with the bank, obviously the address of the property, the nature of what your intention is with the land, the ownership. Do you own it already? And are you planning to build a subdivision? And if so, how many homes are going to be part of that subdivision, or what kind of development is it going to be? Is it going to be, you're in Oxford, are you planning on doing student housing because you're close enough to Miami? And, things like that may be quite influential to the lending committee here when they take a look at what you plan on doing. They may be able to see the vision and support it. But again, let me say that typically land development, the cost of land development is not something that the bank will do. But again, I'm not saying no, I'm just saying that that's not typical. Thank you for your question.
Okay, we have one more from LR out in Waynesville asking, in regards to new construction, he also states that he's viewed in just a few minutes behind. So he apologizes if he missed anything, but he wanted to know, in regards to new construction, what type of funding is provided?
For new construction?
Yes.
Okay, and what's this gentleman's name?
This is LR out in Waynesville.
ILR from, reverse my initials. My initials are RL. And hi from hello from Waynesville. The type of documentation, I believe, is what you're asking that you're going to need for new construction. Is we're going to need to know what you intend to build. As I had said earlier, and I don't mean to be redundant to the rest of our viewers, or maybe you've already heard this, maybe you haven't, but typically when someone comes here or goes to any lender, typically they already own the land. They own the land free and clear. By virtue of ownership of that land, that may offset some, maybe all of the 25% down payment that is required. So getting together your docs that proof of ownership, that demonstrate proof of ownership, will be one of the things. When you approach the bank, as I was saying a few minutes ago, they're going to want to know what you plan on building. They're going to want to see the schematics, they're going to want to see the plans, they're going to see the building package and expenses. Mm-hmm. Those are the kinds of things that you're going to need to gather. If you're already at that point, and maybe even beyond that point, are your permits in place? Who are your vendors? Are you planning on doing much of the work yourself? And the bank will allow you to do some of the work yourself, but there are certain aspects of this that you can't do yourself. And unless you do foundations for a living, the bank is not going to they're not going to approve the borrower and his cousin renting backhoes and forms and hiring a concrete company to come out and pour into their homemade forms. They just won't allow that. But if you are a licensed electrician and you intend to wire the home yourself, that's fine. Being in the trades, you may have friends that are licensed plumbers and roofers. That's fine. All of that is perfectly acceptable. The bank is just going to want to know who they are. Mm-hmm. I hope that answers your question. But if not, you can call in and ask for Beshka or myself, and we'll be happy to spend more time and talk with you further on it.
One thing I wanted to add to that, if you are, you are the builder and you're looking to establish a relationship with the bank, it would be a good idea to come in and actually have a conversation so that we can get to know you. As Remo mentioned in the beginning, this is our first time that we are, working with you. We tend to be a little bit more, we just need more information because we haven't established an understanding yet. So, a conversation coming on in, getting to know, put a face with a name, that kind of thing, is a great start to kind of build that relationship. And of course, once you get your first project under your belt, we know how you flow, we know what you do, and we have a, better understanding of how you do things in the future. So establishing that relationship is a good thing.
Beshka, I think that was a terrific point you made. And I'll tell you, it goes well beyond just new construction. In this COVID world, in this world of social media, so much is done impersonally. And her point is so valid. The value of you coming in here and us sitting down at this very conference table and looking each other in the eye and shaking hands and getting a real feel for the nature of that person. If I can assure you that if you came in here, one of the things that you would learn immediately, if you didn't learn it from that impassioned description that Beshka just gave you, is how much she cares. And I can tell you, this goes from the top of the organization on down. Everyone here really cares. That's not something that you're going to pick up on in, in an email or a text. It's something that will be solidified. You can begin the relationship that way. A phone call, obviously, is a typical way to begin a relationship. But coming in and spending 20, 30 minutes, and 20 minutes isn't very long, even 30 minutes, spending some time getting to know each other will go a long way toward helping us realize what your goals are and helping us help you achieve, if not exceed, your goals. Mm-hmm. So that was a great point that you made, because this goes beyond new construction. It applies as well to flips and buy and hold situations. Rachel Ann, anyone else, or are we toward the end?
Actually, we do have one more. We'll take one more.
Okay.
From James in Milford. He wants to know, what is the process for, if at all, any add-on construction?
The process for add-on construction, thank you for the question. I appreciate it. Is going to be fairly simple. There might be one or two minor complexities, but typically when you're coming to this bank, you're going to want to add a fourth bedroom to your home or something along those lines. Depending on your situation with regards to ownership. If you have an existing mortgage, you would need, with Spring Valley Bank, you would need to either refinance into a loan here, because Spring Valley Bank always needs to be in the first lien position. If your home is paid off in full, if you own it free and clear, and you're going to put on a fourth bedroom and a master bathroom suite, essentially the bank would be looking at a short-term loan for you. They'd be looking for your building plans, how much money you're looking for, what your repayment time frame schedule is, things of that nature. That brings up one big point, is that let's say that you do own your home free and clear, and you wish to do something like this. Probably your least expensive way to do this is to get a HELOC, home equity line of credit. Spring Valley Bank at this point does not offer HELOCs. Our goal here, as I just stated, is to help you the best we possibly can. And if you come to us with that situation, your home is owned free and clear, and you're trying to do something, and we want to help you do it as economically as possible, we might advise you to seek a lender that would give you a home equity line of credit. That's going to be your least expensive money. Mm-hmm. So I hope that answers your question and helps a little bit. I do want one more thing. I want to go back to LR for just a quick second, and actually even from your question, because I think you're in Milford, so Milford is fine. Waynesville might be an issue. Oxford, there's a chance that the call that came from Oxford may be an issue. And here's what the issue is. This bank has an 8-county footprint, and we will not do loans outside of those 8 counties. You have the 4 counties here in Ohio: Hamilton, Butler, Claremont, and Warren. You have 3 counties in northern Kentucky: Boone, Kenton, and Campbell. And you have 1 county in eastern Indiana, and that's Dearborn County. Outside of that 8-county footprint, the bank typically does not do deals. Once again, I'm hedging my words by saying typically, because if you were looking for let me use this construction loan or development in Oxford as an example. If the development, and I'm not sure of the county there, but if you're outside of the Ohio counties, But what you're going to develop is going to be a large subdivision or a commercial property, something of that nature, something beyond just a typical small project. The bank would look at doing something like that for you. So I'm not trying to discourage you. I just want to be clear that 8 counties is a typical footprint. Outside of those 8 counties, it would have to be a special situation, but the bank would certainly consider it. I hope that helps. So I think that was our last question. We appreciate you tuning in again today. Thank you for finding your way, and please look at Real Estate Today, Spring Valley Bank's website on YouTube and on Facebook. Beshka?
Part of also our Partners of Greater Cincinnati YouTube channel for off-market investment opportunities and insights on investing in local real estate.
Yeah, and before we go, one more thing. And I've said this each episode. This is about construction today. But beyond that, let me go back, because this is so incredible and so impressive that Rachel Ann Howard, the marketing director for this bank, actually day in and day out searches for opportunities, off-market opportunities. And it's no secret how hard it is to find appropriate properties right now. I strongly recommend that you take advantage of Rachel Ann's hard work. She's doing it for you to help you find an opportunity. And nothing would please her more than to know that someone has bought a property that she has found that you wouldn't have known about if she didn't find it. So go to Real Estate Partners of Greater Cincinnati, go to the Spring Valley Bank website, go ahead and subscribe, interact with Rachel Ann. Just as much as I told you you'd love Beshka, you will love Rachel Ann every bit as much. Thanks for your time today. We really appreciate it. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.